Hello and welcome to 27 Perspectives from the European Parliament in Brussels. Europe's housing is in a bind at the moment. In the transformation to a net zero society trying to avoid climate catastrophe, housing has to play its part. A third of all greenhouse emissions in the EU are caused by it after all. And its part was most recently defined in the latest revision of the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, which came into force a year and a half ago. While being negotiated, the proposed rules were heavily criticized by many, not least by one of my guests today. We shall ask him what he thinks about it now. At the same time, housing, affordable housing in particular, is in a deep crisis across Europe. There simply isn't enough of it around. And the EU is taking this crisis, an emergency in fact for many citizens, very seriously. For the first time ever, the European Commission has a designated commissioner for housing, which is not traditionally regarded as a topic that falls into the European executive's domain. And the European Parliament has created a special committee to help tackle the crisis. Our other guest today is sitting on this committee, and we shall hear from him what he thinks Europe can do to help solve the crisis. So, to our guests today, Gordan Bosanac is the coordinator for the Green European Free Alliance Group in the Special Committee on the Housing Crisis in the European Union. He holds degrees in engineering and human rights and made the switch from the Croatian parliament to the European one just after last year's elections. Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr. Christian König is the chief executive of the German Association of Private Building Societies. He knows all about housing crisis, and he might have some suggestions how to solve them. Welcome. First, then, to you, Christian König. As I mentioned earlier, you were a vocal critic of the Energy Performance Directive, mainly on the grounds that they represented too heavy a burden for homeowners as well as for the construction industry and would prove counterproductive. Now it's been the law since June last year. Have you changed your mind?
I haven't changed my mind, but the thing is that the original draft of the directive was much more focused on the obligation for every house owner to renovate the existing building, which has changed. So the Parliament and the Council agreed on a more moderate approach. Now it's on the agenda of Member States to propose a renovation plan, and Member States now have the obligation to identify the least 15% of energy efficient housing in order to encourage these people to renovate the existing housing stock. So it got much more focused on the problem and maybe more focused on the subsidiarity, because member states know better than the European Commission or the European Parliament what needs to be done on a national level. So therefore we are quite okay with the outcome right now. Now we are waiting for the national renovation plans. The obligation to transform the directive will pass until, I think, April, May next year. So only 5-6 months to go. I haven't seen any proposal yet.
All right.
From some governments.
All right.
We will see. At the end, there will be an obligation for people to renovate the existing housing stock, and then we have to focus which people are living in these houses. And this was our main concern, that people with less income, people who have a certain age, have the obligation to renovate. So there need to be some support, but these people also need to be encouraged to renovate the existing housing stock in which they live.
How is the support? Can the support look like? Are there concrete plans already, or again, that support has to be developed by member states?
That support needs to be developed by member states. Of course, there are European funds which are discussed in the House Committee right now, exactly the same topic. But we cannot, I think we have to also realize, if you have to renovate 15% of the existing housing stock in every member state, there might be 200 buildings in Europe and 15% of it. And imagine how much money you need to organize in order to help these people to renovate. So we need also, we can't pay it also only by taxes. We need to find ways to encourage people to do it themselves, together with the banking system. Housing savings plans could help in this situation, and we are encouraging already consumers to check their existing housing stock in order to renovate.
So, I mean, you weren't in Parliament when all this went through.
Unfortunately,
You've
not.
just joined, you're now in the special committee, but you just said shortly before we started that also in this committee, this is still debated, this is still discussed. So the outcome of the reality, what this energy efficiency directive is doing. So what is your experience with that?
Okay. First, let me just say, that if we look like 2 years ago and where we are now, and you also asked the colleague, did he change his mind or not? Also to see kind of evaluation what is happening up to now. For sure, we are waiting for the national plans, which then much more things will be clearer. But also, let's also face that, the energy reconstruction has started. And in many member states, we are already seeing the households and the member states who already are using European funds and giving it to the people to do energy efficiency reconstructions. I'm coming from Croatia, and I can say this is one of the most popular calls in Croatia. When the government announced the call for the homes to apply, usually they receive maybe, 5 times more application than there is money actually available for it. So this is the good signal, because this is showing us that people understood why is this important. So it's not some blurry green, ideology that was pushed in the last term of the European Parliament, because the people now really understand, because it's a question of the climate change, but it's also the question of energy reductions, and people want to pay less bills on energy. When we go to the House Committee, there are a lot of heating debates happening there. And one of the debates, which is maybe the key one, which we are now having when we started negotiation about the final report, how to solve the crisis. Is it the answer in the approach which is called build, build, build? So build more new stocks. We need more buildings, more flats. Or we should also focusing on renovation and repurposing of old stock and actually use them and transform them into affordable housing stocks. So this is one of the debates where this directive also comes to our debate.
So what is your perspective on that? Of course, you'd prefer building probably rather than transformation, or is the mortgage lenders also interested in the existing stock?
Of course, we finance mostly people with low and middle income. So therefore, there's usually not a question to buy new buildings because they are overpriced or too expensive. So our customers usually buy second-hand homes, right, existing housing stock. And more than 60% of the loans which we grant is given to people who want to renovate. Renovate energy efficiency, but step by step, not all in one time.
In one push.
So they do the roof this year, maybe in 2 years they do the window, and then in 4 years they do the heating system, because they don't have the money. And second, we don't have the people to do it. We have a lack of handicraft workers who fix heating systems or install the windows. We have lack of material as well. Since the war, Ukraine and Russia, we have serious increase of prices for building materials. So this all came to the same effect. Of course, we need to build more in areas where we need homes. I'm living in a big city in Berlin. There's a lack of housing. We need to build more because in these areas, people need to live because they need to work there. On countryside, the problem is houses are empty, but there are no jobs. Exactly. So we need to really focus on where people have their jobs. We need to invest in infrastructure as well. Not everybody can live in a city. So you need to have a connection, public transportation, schools, doctors, and so on. So this has to be seen globally, not only focusing on just building new places and then everything will be solved. And the second thing is, and that's why we are here, we have to be careful when we propose new regulations or directives which can have an effect on house prices. So there are numerous directives and regulations which make housing and housing finance more expensive and more burdensome for credit institutions or for the housing industry and therefore for the consumer. So I really encourage the Parliament to think twice when laws are done in Brussels which have an effect on prices. Yeah. I can give you hundreds of examples if you want to.
But let's move it slowly. Let's move it backwards a little bit because you mentioned something very interesting at the lack of skilled labor. A lack of material as well, but lack of skilled labor. And I believe that's something that you're going to talk about. You have a hearing later today in the House Committee.
Exactly.
So it's something obviously that is also very, very on the forefront of your mind.
This is the problem, and especially in the construction sector and the protection of workers' rights in construction sector, I have to say it's not satisfactory as we would like to see. So even the conditions, if you are a worker on Baustelle, what we are saying, it's really tough job. And I do remember a lot of workers, coming from former Yugoslavia to Germany, working on Baustelle and actually earning the money. So this culture of working and constructing is very familiar to me. But it's also the problem, there is one directive which is pending in the air for maybe, 15, 16 years. It's called 883 directive, which actually should recognize the rights of worker when it goes to work from one EU member state to another EU member state. And we cannot find agreement. Actually, in the parliament, we have agreement. There is a problem in the council. Even the commission is in favor. And everything is stuck on the construction sector, where actually they don't want to let it down that those workers should be recognized in each and every country in the same manner. So I think this is the first steps we have to do, really, empower the workers, right? And then the second, this is also the true and the reality that we will need to have the foreign workers coming to Europe and also help us to build the Europe together. And then we are also facing some, xenophobic, racist comments on those people. But actually, it seems that without them, we cannot succeed. So I would expect that, the Parliament will also push in this direction. First, to recognize more the rights, also to recognize the need for the foreign workers, and also to give, the additional, support also to the private building sector, that they can also pay off all these expensive things which are now embedded in the housing.
Yeah, and you then also mentioned, of course, regulations that can bring prices up, have a negative effect on prices. But I think also the commissioner now, Dan Jurgensen, of course, it seems to be aware of that. I just this week he gave a long interview to Euronews Television, and he was saying, we have to cut back on red tape and bureaucracy, make it easier and to move forward. So do you think there's a change of mind there within the Commission for the better, from your point of view, or is it just words?
I mean, I haven't seen a report of the Commission yet, right?
No one's seen it yet.
Nobody has seen it. We saw the House report.
No, he wants
we saw
before Christmas,
1,500.
right? He wanted to put before Christmas. He said he wants to put out
on 16th of December. It will be presented.
Yeah, sorry.
We will see. I hope it's not only for prohibiting Airbnb or something. We have to really go into details. For example, the building material regulation from the past, not your parliament, not the period before, doesn't make it cheaper to build. Yeah. The mortgage credit directive with creditworthiness assessments, where you cannot take a guarantee as a security, also doesn't make it easier. Banking supervisory rules, Basel, where you have these kind of factors on mortgage credits, where you have to put more own equity aside, doesn't make it cheaper for banks to finance mortgage credit, even though they are quite safe compared to a real estate finance, other part of real estate financing. So there are things which makes building and financing much more expensive, and I'm pretty sure this directive also will make it more expensive for financing renovation, because what you're going to do if you have a house which is under this 15% lowest energy level and you need to finance renovation, the value of the property is less because you can't sell it anymore. So we also have to take into consideration when we regulate these things.
Yeah. But I just didn't understand, because if you renovate the house and you have a really good, zero emission house, then the price of the house actually rise up, because people do appreciate that.
Substantially, no?
I think, yes.
It depends on the
bills
location.
are low.
On the location, but also if on the same location you have one fully renovated and one non-renovated, wherever you invest, this is what I said, that there is awareness within the people that they want to go in this direction. And second, just because I think, I can agree to some extent also that this regulation could contribute to the rise of the price. But this is nothing comparing to the other roots of housing crisis and the rise of the prices in the housing sector, which are connected to financialization. The fact that people were buying homes, not one flat, not two, but hundreds of them, and putting in on, for example, on short-term rental, or we are having also examples of people just investing in empty homes. In my city, Zagreb, there is 850,000 people living. We have 55,000 empty flats. Because what happened? It happened when you had an extra money in the last 10 years and you come to the banking advisor to where should I invest, and I don't want to, do some investment in startup because it's not safe. They will tell you buy a flat or you rent it or just keep it, because the inflation will not eat their money, and they were right. So if you invested in the empty flat, it's something like you invested in the gold. And this culture we actually have to end up. and try to, make the market more stable and not go in such extremes as it's now.
But how can you? Because it's
Oh, yes.
successful. It gets the people money. People have, more and more people have money to invest like that.
Yes.
And they're not going to say, just because it's bad for somebody else, I won't do it.
It will. If you will decrease the prices of one of the approaches, and this is what we are pushing a lot. And I think there is a quite big consensus on that we have to increase the public stock of the houses. So by that, the cities, as we are seeing in Vienna and other cities, they can really regulate the market price. And then, there will be no easy and fast earning a lot of money like in 2 years, but you can profit on housing for sure, but it will take longer. And this is also very good investment because I spoke with a lot of banks, which are actually telling me that people now also want to have safe investments. So if you investment in, some public sustainable housing community, and then, you will invest for 30 years, your income per year will not be, 100, but maybe it will be 30, which is also nice income. And by that, they want to attract more private investors. I think this is the good way. But this is only one tool we are having. There are some other things also related to the short term, etc.
What do you think about financing? Do you think it's realistic to think that people will, think a bit more of the common good and less about their own profit?
We finance usually people who live in the apartments.
Yeah.
So we are giving credit for people self-owned apartments, right? That's why we don't face this issue. We don't finance this kind of speculation, of course. And these people you mentioned are not buying on credit. They have cash or they have money, and they also
That's the problem with the cash, which is floating in this
also
market.
coming from other parts of the world to invest in big cities and leave the apartment empty. I understand that. So, but I think local communities can do something about it. Same like Airbnb. Paris is now prohibiting, step by step, these kind of apartments for rent. So as a community, you can do something. I don't think that Brussels is the right way to regulate these issues. It should be done
and
by...
Brussels will not regulate it. I mean, also one story, I visited recently island Madeira, the beautiful one in Atlantic Ocean, because they also have facing horrible housing crisis because they've been open to the tourism, they got cheap flights and, the foreigners come, bought a lot of...
Oh, you have that in the Balearic, of course, as
everywhere,
well.
And they were struggling. And now they start to invest more in building, as I said, the public stock. So the local cities, communities are building the public owned stocks. And I went to one of the construction scenes, talk with the workers, how the things are progressing. And I said, everything is good, but only, this European Union and you Greens, you really make us life difficult. I said, what did I do now wrong?
Yeah.
No, you know what is the problem? For example, there is a rule that the wall has to be wide, 40 centimeters. I'm improvising now. And this is the rule. And when we are living in Madeira, where there are nice hot temperature, we don't need 40 centimeters. For us, it's, 30, okay. Yeah. But we are forced to build 40 because Greens and European Union told us so. And I said, come on. No one told you so. But so there is this myth. And of course, there is no in this regulation anything about 40, 30 centimeters. And what we are seeing actually then on national level, member states are making things much more complicated. And this is why I'm worried when European Commission is talking about simplification. Fine, let's simplify. But also ask the member state, what have they done about the simplification? Or they are making things more horrible for the people?
It's called gold plating.
Gold plating.
Gold plating.
Completely agree. But when this directive was negotiated here in Brussels, the Irish MEP at that time, he was putting the idea that every house should have a solar panel on its roof.
This is not in the directive.
But he was brought up by him.
We have to be ambitious, otherwise, we will lose everything.
This exactly leads to the fact that people are criticizing and don't understand why Brussels is telling me that I should put a solar panel on my roof. If you live in northern Sweden, where it's dark now the half year, or you live in the Alps, in the valley, so what's the point? I mean, this is also a problem sometimes that too over-ambitious proposals are brought in the parliament, or not in the council, but in the parliament, which are now in the media later on. Everybody talks about it. And at the end, it got skipped, right? There was no majority for solar panel for everybody. But this is usually the problem.
Yeah, I know how this could be manipulated. I was following a little bit a campaign in Germany about heat pumps and
Exactly.
how it went in totally wrong direction. I was like, wow, this is not what is happening actually. Yeah, but unfortunately, the green transition has become also ideological kind of battlefield, which I think is really, really bad because it's really the question of the future of us as a mankind and and the future of the planet. So we should avoid this ideological, passionate debate and really try to talk on rational, scientific approach, and I'm really into that. I can maybe also say that sometimes some things has been exaggerated, especially my concern was when I also looking who is applying for the energy reconstruction back home in Croatia, it's a middle class. So even if you are down under the middle class, you cannot co-finance with 20-30% some money. So this is what I would really like to advocate for, also for the people who cannot afford that, got full support on that, so that no one is left behind. And for me, the only green transition is a just green transition. Otherwise, I don't recognize it.
Out of question, we need to do something. We need to renovate the existing housing stock. The plan is quite ambitious. We will see now what member states will do with these renovation plans, which need to be drafted. The directive has to be transposed until May next year, I believe.
Yeah.
So there's not much time for national governments, and we will see how governments will transpose it. But I want to say that not everything can be paid and supported with tax money, which would be impossible. So people need to do it themselves too. They need to invest in their own houses in order to save the energy costs, but also do something for the environment. Yes.
Exactly.
The commissioner was talking about also to try to, garner investment, and he was mentioning the European Investment Bank and so on. So is there a possibility perhaps that there will be some market money, as it were, coming in to help?
There will be. It's clear there should be a combination of public and the private sector. There is no doubt on that. It's just the question, what we are, for example, advocating when the money is coming from the public sources, that the priority for this investment should be also be given to the public entities like cities or municipalities to own the properties, because what we have also seen before, that the public money goes first to the public, to the city, and then city sells the flat to the private person or the private company, and then we again are losing the public stock, which I think it's crucial to balance, as I said at the beginning, to balance the market of the prices in the housing sector.
The previous draft of this directive, or the previous directive, energy performance, was focusing on public buildings mostly, not private buildings. So, and we didn't see much in the public sector. So if I look around the schools in Europe, the hospitals, the army bases, and all the public buildings, courthouses, they're not really well isolated.
They were supposed to be isolated.
They're supposed to be.
In the last wave.
Yeah.
And nothing happened. Why is that?
Not nothing, but not sufficient. Not enough.
Yeah.
So, and this is a big part of existing building, not for living, but
they
are polluting the environment as well. And so I suggest they should focus also on this.
Yeah.
And there you have a liability of governments and local governments, and you can make them liable for what they do. So this is also an important part. We're always talking about private housing, about our grandparents, our parents, right?
Yeah.
But governments, city halls, schools, hospitals, they also need to be energy efficient.
We were back home in Zagreb. We were lucky, but also cursed at the same time. We had an earthquake, unfortunately. So we got one opportunity really to reconstruct the city. And now when we are reconstructing, it's really reconstructed in line already with this directive. Yeah. And I have to say that, everyone is happy at the end. Even the users of these public spaces, once when they see the energy efficient building, they really feel it, that something has been changed. But, it's not cheap, but these investments, I think, is worth.
The big goal is to be energy efficient until 2055. This is the goal of the European Union. But right now we renovate only 1% of the existing housing stock per year, which will lead to four times longer. So we need to quadruple the efforts which we are doing now in order to reach the goal on 2055, which is quite difficult.
Ambitious.
It is ambitious.
We can do it?
We have to push for it, but also when I'm seeing this parliament, this house, there is a lot of opposition to this idea. My feeling is that still majority of the people are believing, still that climate change is happening and that energy reconstruction is a good way to fight the climate crisis. But we are hearing more and more voices from extreme right, I would say, who are challenging this, and then under the umbrella of simplification actually want to deregulate and dismiss the rules. So this is the fight we are having on daily basis in this house, and it's an important fight.
Yeah. How would you assess the risk of populism taking over and
We already see it. We already see it. I mean, we saw it in some elections that populism took over the housing crisis. Affordable housing is on the agenda of these parties. So therefore, we need to do something altogether in order to take their arguments away.
Yeah.
But for sure, we don't want to build, very cheap, unsafe houses anymore, because we are also seeing, some killings in the bad constructions. Look at the Serbia, what happened at the bus station, for example. It's not a house, but it's a public infrastructure. So we don't want that. And, people in Europe for sure are aware, as I said, on the necessity to be more progressive. And I actually think that the populists will lose the battle. They can maybe win on the short race, but in a long race, they will lose the battle because people want safe and warm and healthy houses.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Maybe that's the little senses we need, because we're run out of time now. And thank you very much to Gordon Bosanac and Christian König for this. And thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.